talk about the network services, and then we try to understand how to manage and configure the services using some tools, command utility. For example, in Ubuntu or Linux, most common Unix operating system, we use systemctl to manage the service. Okay, start, stop, and restart or enable or something like that. So today we will continue to talk about the kind of services, which are the software and platform services. So in definition, the software services are just the service that employees or people in our organization, our networks, use to do their daily job. For example, it can be word processor like the Microsoft Office, the browser, the emails, and sometimes people also use chat application. Okay. And for the platform services, the kind of service that provide basic platform. I mean, kind of platform that allow the developer, especially developer, to code. Okay, without having to manage and configuring the operating system and configuration inside the operating system on the servers. For example, like web services. Okay, so if you don't know, if you're working in the web development, so oftentimes if you try to develop, especially in back-end development, you will need the web services and the database. Okay, so those are the configured and implemented for you. If you don't have them, it will be very difficult for you as a developer. Okay. Software services គ្រាន់តែជាប្រភេទ service ដែលយើងជាបុគ្គលិកឬក៏អ្នកធ្វើការធម្មតាដែលត្រូវការប្រើអូខេដូចក៏ Office អូខេជា service មួយដែរយើងធម្មតាជា organization ធំមួយយើងត្រូវធ្វើម៉េចតម្លើងពួក service ហ្នឹងឲ្យម៉ាស៊ីនទាំងអស់នៅក្នុង network មកទៀតយើងមិនទៅអង្គុយតម្លើងម្ដងមួយទេវាមានរបៀបថាយើងត្រូវប្រើ product ឬក៏ប្រភេទ service អីដែលងាយស្រួលសម្រាប់ឲ្យយើង manage ហើយ install កម្មវិធីទាំង include ទាំង service ខ្លះទៀតដូចជាពួក email អូខេ email file storage chat client នេះអូខេហើយ platform និយាយទូទៅគឺ web service ហើយនឹង web server ហើយនឹង database ចឹង developer ទៅធ្វើ development អត់ពីរហ្នឹងគឺដាក់តែចេញទេ in the software services, we will talk about some major services that almost every organization these days use. Okay, so first we will talk about the communication services. So in the communication services, basically it means the instant communication. Okay, that means chat. Okay, chat between one client to another. It doesn't have a server. Okay, mostly in the old days, in the old time, they use a protocol called IRC. It's free, but it's old. Okay, these days people don't use it anymore. They prefer some kind of paid services. as you may know, okay, Slack is also one the most popular one, and we have some others like Microsoft Teams, like we're using right now. Google Chat, Discord, also is also popular. So these are the services that the software that most organizations use today. Zoom is also one of the software. Okay. And then we have some free open source other options using XMPP protocol. Okay. The software, some software is called Pictim or Audium. If you want to know more. Okay. Mostly it used in the Unix operating system. So most often I will put the link for you to read, okay, if you want to know more. And then we have the mail service. Of course, every major organization has their own email server. Okay. For example, our organization, our institute is also a public organization, so it also has their own mail server. Okay, so if we set up the email servers for the organization, we will have the email address something like this. Okay, our name and then the domain name of the organization. Okay. So to configure the email service, first we need to have domain name server. Okay. That's why I asked you to do the DNS first. And then we have so we have two options to set up the email. Okay, the email server. First, we can just run our own server, our own managed server. We can have our own physical server, and then we install the mail server on that dedicated server. And then we create a record, a new record just for the email. Or we can use another option. It's a commercialized options like Google or Microsoft's. I think it's Microsoft 365. Okay. Now, so in case of ITC, it used Microsoft 365 service. Okay. So the mails actually store on the Microsoft service server. Okay. Microsoft. It's a commercial one. Okay. You pay for it. Then បើសិនយើងចង់ set up email server សម្រាប់ organization មួយយើងមានពីរជម្រើសធម្មតាហ្នឹងយើងអាចតម្លើងខ្លួនឯងឬក៏យើងប្រើ cloud ប្រើរបស់ Google ឬក៏របស់ Microsoft អញ្ចឹងរាល់ថ្ងៃ popular គឺគេប្រើតែរបស់ Google ឬក៏ Microsoft ឯងអញ្ចឹងបើសិនជាយើងប្រើរបស់ Google យើង mail server យើងហ្នឹងគឺវា integrate ជាមួយនឹង Gmail web Gmail web ហ្នឹងគេ Gmail web page អញ្ចឹង email យើងបើកមកដូច email អញ្ចឹងយើងរបស់ Microsoft email យើងហ្នឹងបើកមកចេញ Outlook អូខេ Microsoft Outlook អាហ្នឹងយើងមាន email យើងដឹងយើង log in តាម Outlook email របស់សាលាអញ្ on the ក្នុង email server ហ្នឹង inside the email server ហ្នឹងវាមាន there are some protocol. Okay, usually almost every services has their own protocol. Okay, so for the mail server they has their own protocol as well, and the most common ones are POP3, IMAP, and SMTP. If you will work as a system administrator, you will want to know this kind of protocol. Later, you will need to install and configure that kind of protocol. So the POP3 or Post Office Protocol version 3, okay, it's the kind of protocol that only download your email from the server, and then actually it only download to a single device, okay, your local device, and then it will delete your email from the server. It only works like that, okay. So you can only view it from just one device. What about the benefits? So the benefits of this kind of protocol is that if you have a limitation in your storage, server storage, you will want to use this, okay, because it will keep your email storage under certain quota. I mean, certain amount of limitation, okay, because it will delete the email from the server, so you don't need to store many email, okay. And then also privacy. So since you can only view from one local device, so others user cannot access, or the admin cannot access to see your email, okay. So the other two protocol is IMAP and SMTP. So IMAP is instant messaging access protocol. So that means you can download emails, and it also keep the email in the server. Okay. More like the common use one. Okay, the most popular one that we use in this day is the IMAP. Our Gmail, our Outlook, almost every email use IMAP. Okay. And IMAP actually only allow you to download the emails, but if you want to send email, you have to use another protocol called SMTP. Okay, so without SMTP you cannot send email. Okay. Actually, it's simple. Okay. If you want to read more about the protocol, I think it's the same. Okay. In detail about each protocol, you can go to this link. Okay. And then we have productivity services. Okay. Are the services that employee needs to do their job. Okay. So we have like Microsoft Office. Okay. Especially the Microsoft Office. The point here is you as a sysadmin or IT specialist, IT support specialist, if you ever need or have to install softwares, especially the softwares for productivity, as a batch inside a company, you will need to consider reading the agreement, okay, license agreement. So you will need to buy a license for using the software. So we need to understand the difference between the software license as commercialized as a business, and the type license are as a consumer. Okay, so the consumer license and the business license are different. So if you need, if you need to install the software, many software as a whole for companies, so you need to install, you need to buy license as a business agreement. Okay. So that's the point here. Okay. So it's important to review to review the terms and agreement. Okay. Consumer and business, but most of the time for an organization they just buy a license as a business. ចឹងតើតើនឹង software ដែលត្រូវតឡើងដូចឧទាហរណ៍ដូច Microsoft Office ចឹងយើងមិនទិញ license របៀបពួក consumer ទេយើងទិញ license បែប business គេអ្នកខ្លះប្រហែលជាស្គាល់តែអ្នកខ្លះប្រហែលជាអត់ស្គាល់ចឹងគាត់ចង់បញ្ជាក់ថាចឹងគេមានប្រភេទ license ពីរខុសគ្នាហ្នឹងហើយបើសិនយើងត្រូវតការច្រើនត្រូវការប្រើត្រូវការ user ប្រើច្រើនអញ្ចឹងយើងធម្មតាយើងទិញlicense បែប business គេអានោះវាចំណេញជាង But next we have security services. So it's a huge topic. If you have time, we will talk about it more in detail about the security that we can use in the server on our server. Okay, but in here we just mention some of the services that used on the platform on platform services like web service. Okay, so one of the security service is the HTTPS. Okay, the security here means we use a kind of protocol that keeping data encrypted and authentication. Okay. So without that kind of protocol, your website, your server, your network is not secure. Okay. So there are some other factors as well, but here we only talk about the some that we use for the platform services like web service. So one of the protocol is called HTTPS. So without installing the security protocol, we just have HTTP, right? So our web server can only provide the server or provide the service as HTTP, and the data will not be secure or encrypted. So HTTPS is one of the protocol to encrypt the data on your data communication through web browsers. HTTPS here just mean that the HTTP protocol is sent over the TLS. So TLS or SSL is a security protocol. Okay, and the most popular one is TLS, Transport Layer Security Protocol. But in order to enable it, okay, in order to enable TLS, so that our website can have HTTPS, okay, we need to have a digital certificate. Okay, so digital certificate here is a kind of certificate of trust that we can get from organization like we call it certificate authority. So actually oftentimes we need to buy it, okay, but we can also make our own certificate, but it's not trustworthy. Okay, So certificate authority most grant a certificate to our website. That means whenever we access the website, whenever we access to the website, that means we can trust that kind of website is secure. Okay, it's more like of security verified. Okay. So you need to buy it. Okay, if you want HTTPS certificate on your website. In our lab practice, we will try to create our own certificate, but it's not trustworthy, as I mentioned. Then security នេះចង់និយាយថាយើងបន្ថែម security layer ពីលើ service ដែលយើងមានស្រាប់តែអញ្ចឹងឧទាហរណ៍ HTTP អញ្ចឹង web server របស់យើងអញ្ចឹងយើងបើសិនជាអត់បន្ថែមអាហ្នឹងទេវាមានតែ HTTP ហើយពេលយើង access ទៅ website របស់យើងហ្នឹងវា load មកវា not secure អូខេបានន័យថា data communication ដែលយើង request ហើយ download មកវិញហ្នឹងវាអត់បាន script អីទេអូខេយើងមានគេអាចលួចឬក៏ hack ឬក៏អីចឹងគេអាចលួច data ហ្នឹងបានអញ្ចឹងដើម្បីឲ្យ secure យើងត្រូវថែម layer secure ទៀតគឺវាមាន2គឺ TLS និង SSL ប៉ុន្តែពីច្រើនគេនិយមប្រើ TLS ហើយដើម្បី enable TLS ហ្នឹងបានយើងត្រូវមាន digital certificate ដែលយើងបានពីគេហៅ certificate authority ហ្នឹងអូខេធម្មតាយើងត្រូវទិញប៉ុន្តែក៏យើងអាចបង្កើតខ្លួនឯងបានដែរអូខេប៉ុន្តែគាត់យើងបង្កើតខ្លួនឯងទៅក្នុង local អញ្ចឹងវា load secure អញ្ចឹងប៉ុន្តែពេល access ពី internet មកអាហ្នឹងគេអត់ស្គាល់អូខេវាគេអត់ត្រាស់ទេអញ្ចឹងបន្តមកយើងមាន next we have fast storage services. So it's also important services that we need to have inside our organization. And you can refer it most of the time you can refer it as cloud, okay, cloud storage. But actually we can create or install the cloud services inside our local network. But these days people just use cloud. Okay, it's way more convenient than using our own network. So we can store file, access file between certain people, certain users, certain groups. Okay. So there are many kind of cloud file storage these days. So the most popular one we use is Google Drive, and then we have OneDrive from Microsoft, and then we have some other kind of cloud storage cloud storage service like Mega or Dropbox. And if you want to know more about the comparison, the price, the comparison of the price and the performance, you can just check the link here. Okay. And then we have network file storage. So it's also a kind of service that people use, okay, inside a local organization. If you ever familiar about the file system, okay. So for example, the USB drive that we use this or the hard disk we use this day, it has a certain file system like NFS or FAT32. And for people using Mac OS, if you want to use your flash USB, you need to format it to a file system FAT32. If you use NFS, it doesn't work. Okay, it doesn't work on Mac OS. I think you already know that, right? So FAT32 is the most popular one, and is compatible with almost every operating system. Okay, but it has limitation. Okay, you cannot transfer a large amount of data. For example, you have a single file size of 2 gigabit or 4 gigabyte. You cannot transfer it through FAT32. Okay, it's too big. It doesn't allow huge amount of data transfer. Okay, and then if you want to transfer huge amount of data transfer, so you need to use NFS. Okay. So if we want to have a kind of file storage that can be shared between multiple users, so we need to keep that file somewhere. Okay, we need to get that file somewhere on the server. Okay, so that other user can access the files through a certain protocol, FAT32 or NFS. យើងចង់និយាយថា data file storage នេះបានន័យថានៅក្នុង organization មួយគេត្រូវមានអាហ្នឹងអូខេបើសិនយើងចង់ share file នៅក្នុង local ធម្មតាយើងខ្ជិល download យើងខ្ជិល copy flash copy USB អញ្ចឹងអូខេអញ្ចឹងបើសិនជាម៉ាស៊ីនហ្នឹងវានៅក្នុង local network តែមួយហើយយើងtransfer ឆ្លង network ទៅវាលឿនអូខេសារនៅក្នុង local network បើសិនជាយើងមានខ្សែអីធំទៅខ្សែដើរស្រួយនឹងយើង transfer file លឿនទេ file យើងធំយើងមិនបាច់ចាំបាច់ download ហើយ copy flash អីទៅមកនឹងវាញ៉ៃញ៉ៃចឹងដើម្បីធ្វើអញ្ចឹងបានយើងមាន network file storage service ចឹងមាន2គឺ FAT32 FAT32 គឺភាគច្រើនគេប្រើក្នុងពួក Linux ឬក៏ Mac OS អូខេចឹងវាបើសិនយើងដាក់ប្រើអាហ្នឹងវា compatible គ្រប់ operating system អូខេប៉ុន្តែបើសិនជាយើងប្រើ NFS អូខេអាហ្នឹងប្រើបានតែមួយចំនួននេះគេពួក Mac ប្រើអត់កើតទេ NFS ហ្នឹងយើងដឹងបើសិនយើង format flash NFS file system យើងដោតចូល Mac ទៅប្រកាសជាអត់ស្គាល់ដែរអញ្ចឹងខ្ញុំ format flash ខ្ញុំដាក់ NFS ដោយសារតែត្រូវ copy file ធំអីអា FAT32 វាអត់ឲ្យ copy ទេវាអត់ឲ្យ transfer អា file ធំទេ pigeon okay so since NFS protocol and can allow us to transfer huge amount of data so it's the most popular one okay it's the preferable option to use in network that use Windows operating system but we can also set up on our Linux environment. So to set up, we just need to install an FF server software. So there are many kinds of software. And then we need to configure which directory or folder that we want to share on the network through an FS protocol. We will try to do this in our lab session. Okay. So whenever we want to access to that shared directory, we need to mount. Okay. If you use an FS, we need to mount file system to from the server to client, or from the one machine to one machine, something like that. Mounting here, I mean, it's the same as plug in your USB. Okay, it's the same. So here are the software that you can use for Linux. Okay, you can read it, and in the lab session, we will try to do it. If we have, if you can do it faster, you can implement this service. Okay. I think that's all. Okay. And one other protocol that is also popular in the Windows machine is Samba. Okay. So NFS that we talked previously, it works well with the Linux operating system, but not so well with the Windows. Okay. So it can be an issue if we have many Windows machine. Okay. So if we have many Windows machines, so we need to use Samba. It's preferred that we use Samba. Okay. Because Samba here is I think is the native protocol used in the Windows operating system, and for an FS, it's the native file transfer protocol in the early Unix operating system. Okay. Nhưngវាមានពីរអា NFS ហើយនិង Samba ហ្នឹងចង់និយាយថាបើយើង network យើងមាន Windows ម៉ាស៊ីនច្រើនយើងប្រើ Samba វាដើរស្រួលជាងអញ្ចឹងប៉ុន្តែបើយើងមាន Linux ច្រើនវាអាហ្នឹងយើងប្រើ NFS ទៅដោយសារតែ Samba ហ្នឹងវាជា native protocol native បានន័យថាពេលគេបង្កើត Windows OS ហ្នឹងមកគេប្រើ Samba ហ្នឹងគេតាំងពីដើមមកហើយពួក Unix វិញតាំងពីដើមមកគេប្រើ NFS ហ្នឹងចឹងទៅវាធ្វើការជាមួយគ្នាស្រួលហើយបើយើងប្រើខុសគ្នាក៏បានដែរគ្រាន់ថាវាចឹងការវាអត់សូវមានបញ្ហាវាអាចមានបញ្ហាចឹងជាការអត់ដើរឬក៏ config អត់ត្រូវគ្នាអញ្ចឹងវាខុស version ខុសអីចឹងវាជួបច្រើន Okay, so that's all the kind of software services that we talked about. So we have communication services. Okay, the instant communication service like chat, and then we have mail service, email service, and then we have talk about the productivity service, the license that we need to consider using. And then the security protocol that we need to implement, and the file storage and the network file storage that we need to use. The next one is about the platform services. Okay, the web server. Okay, the web service. The web server is one of the example of the platform services that in the development environment needs to be able to code to develop application, okay, to develop and then deploy, okay, and then do some developer stuff, okay. So web server stores and serve content to client, okay. I think you already know that, okay, through HTTP protocol, okay. So HTTP is used just for web content, okay. So I think you already know this concept. So the client send the HTTP request to the web server, and then the web server fetch the content from the file website that we put in there, and then send back the response, okay. So the most widely used HTTP server or web server is Apache, okay. But there are also many other web server, okay, like Nginx that I ask you to install and configure in our lab session. So that one is also most popular, one of the most popular. But I think they are about the same, okay, the level of popularity. The Apache is also the big one that serve the large portion of website these days, okay, on the internet. We have Apache and Nginx for the Linux or Unix-based operating system, okay. But for the Windows operating system or Windows Server, they don't have that kind of. They use the service called ISS, okay, Internet. I think it's Internet Information Service. So if we want to have a kind of web server on Windows Server, we need to install Microsoft IIS. Okay. So you can read more about the comparison again in this link. Okay. Chẳng web server lấy vì dùng những cái vì miền Apache hay là Nginx. Okay. Thời đại thời những aiប្រើបានជា web server. Okay. ហើយពីហ្នឹងវាច្រើនគេប្រើនៅលើ Unix ហ្នឹងឯងពួក Linux ពួក server ពេលច្រើនគេប្រើ Linux ហ្នឹងគេប្រើ Apache ហើយនិង Nginx ប៉ុន្តែ web server គេចង់ដាក់ web server នៅលើ my web server Windows server អញ្ចឹងគេអត់មានប្រើពីរហ្នឹងទេគេប្រើ IIS អូខេអាហ្នឹងប្រើ GUI សុទ្ធអត់មានតែហើយស្រួលយល់មើល Windows server គាត់ទៅ click ហើយអញ្ចឹងso when we running a web service, of course we need data. Okay, we need to send the data back to the client. So if you don't know, okay, if you never know about it, so the data that sent back to the client are stored somewhere on the server, but they don't store on the plain base directory on the file system. Okay, they store it on the database. Okay. Because if we store on the plain-based directory, it's not secure. Okay, it doesn't provide security to the information or data that we send back to the client. So almost every information, every data that are displayed on our website that we browse stored in the database. So you already know about the database. So it's a kind of service. Okay, it's a service that store and query and filter. Okay, large amount of data. The most common database system that we use these days is MySQL. Okay, MySQL and PostgreSQL. So the two is the most popular one using in the web development and data analytics. They has their own type of language we use. Okay, the SQL query. Okay, you already learn about it. Okay, so it's a huge topic. It's a huge domain in the managing the database. Okay, so it's really complex if you already try it. Okay, so there is an entire job specialization in the IT domain that works just for database. Okay, we call it database administrator. And if you want to know about the comparison of the service used for database, you can read here. Okay, we have SQLite, we have MySQL, PostgreSQL. Okay, so they in here they will talk about the comparison in here. So which one you should use? You should consider checking the comparison. ចឹងតកតងនឹង data ឬក៏ព័ត៌មានដែលយើងឃើញនៅលើ website ធម្មតាអាហ្នឹងយើងដឹងហើយធម្មតាព័ត៌មាន data ហ្នឹងវា store នៅក្នុង database គេវាមិនមែន store នៅក្នុងdirectory folder អីទេគេដើម្បីអាចឲ្យយើងធ្វើការជាមួយ web site បានអូខេហើយវា secure ផងដែរហ្នឹងយើងត្រូវ query វាចេញពី database អូខេអាហ្នឹងជា practice មួយដែលយើងចំណាំធ្វើហ្នឹងអញ្ចឹងនៅក្នុង organization យើងក៏ត្រូវមាន database service ហ្នឹងដែរអូខេយើងត្រូវឡើង database ហើយត្រូវបង្កើតអីក្នុងហ្នឹងអូខេចឹងsystem database ដែលគេនិយមប្រើគឺ MySQL និង PostgreSQL អាហ្នឹងយើងដឹងហើយចឹង MySQL វាមាន query របស់វាដែលអាចយើង manage អូខេ administrator និង manage database បានហើយវា complex វាជាការងារដែលត្រូវការ focus ច្រើនអញ្ចឹងគេមាន domain មួយ separate អញ្ចឹងតែគេចឹង specialize មួយ separate ជា job មួយគេអញ្ចឹង database administrator ក៏ជាការងារមួយធំដែរ Okay, I think the next one is okay, about the web. I think it's about the error codes in the ATP status. Okay, so whenever we have errors or issue on the accessing a website and it displays some kind of error, we need to check the HTTP status code. Okay, all the times it always send back some kind of status codes. Okay, for example, the 404 not found is the most common one. Okay, status codes that send back to the web browser if you cannot access it. So normally we can just see the display message error from the web browser, but we can also check it ourselves, the HTTP response that sent back from the server. Okay, so For example, I think in most web browser these days, in the modern web browser these days, it has developer mode. We can develop a tool that we can check the in detail the response that we get from the server, the web server. For example, if we access some kind of web location that doesn't exist, okay, for example, google.com/something, okay. So it will return back the message is for, but that means it cannot find, okay. And if you want to check the response itself from the server, we can click on you can check in the inspect element and then go to the network tab, okay. And then I think here, okay. So the status here is the HTTP status code, okay. And there are many of codes that designate as numbers. So 404 is one of them. Okay, and that means that something here is not found. Okay. And the code that start with 2, that means it's the successful request. Okay, so it get something back. Okay, so there are many kind of HTTP status codes. For example, the 5xx or the code that start with 5s, the error indicates the issue on the server side. Okay, so the 404, that means the errors or the issue is happening on the client side. That means the client trying to access something that doesn't exist, okay, or bad URL, or something that's not authorized to access. But for the files XX or the code that starts with 5, it's indicate the errors or issue on the server side. So if we get that kind of static code, we need to check the server side. It has something wrong with the server. And for the 2xx, it's the successful code, okay, the successful static code. That means the request is successful and it get back something. So there are many other kind of static codes that you can check, okay. Then តើតើនឹងទ្របងសុទ្ធនេះបានថាបើសិនជា access website មួយអត់ដើរ ពី load error ធម្មតាវាត្រូវមាន response message មកវិញ response message ហ្នឹងវាឲ្យជាលេខកូដគេហៅ HTTP static code ហ្នឹងហើយភាគច្រើនយើងជួបច្រើនជាងគេគឺ404ហ្នឹងគេ404 not found ហ្នឹងហើយ404ហ្នឹងបានថា URL ដែលយើងដាក់ហ្នឹងវាអត់រត់ឃើញគេអាកន្លែងដែលយើង access ទៅហ្នឹងវាអត់មានគេភាគច្រើនstatic code ដែលចាប់ដើមពីលេខ4បានន័យថាជា error ដែលមានបញ្ហានៅខាង client វិញគេមិនមែនខាង server ទេខាង client យើង access កន្លែងដែលអត់មានអូខេឬក៏ access កន្លែងដែលគេអត់ឲ្យ access អាហ្នឹងគឺstatic code ដែលចាប់ដើមដល់លេខ4បើចាប់ដើមដល់លេខ5អាហ្នឹងបានន័យថាជាបញ្ហាមកពីខាង server វិញអូខេ server មានបញ្ហាបើសិនយើងបានលេខ5ហើយបើ successful យើងអាច check static code អាហ្នឹងចាប់តាមលេខ2អូខេហ្នឹងអត់មានបញ្ហាទេអូខេ successful Okay, I think that's all for today for the content. Okay? We can summarize a little bit about what we talked today. So today we talk about the software and the platform services that we need to have inside organization system. Okay. If we have an organized system, if we have an organization that need some kind of infrastructure that need to operate, okay, for business, for any kind of business, okay, we need to have this kind of service. So the first one is software service. So inside the software service, we have communication service, security service, and productivity service. Okay, I think those kinds of services, there are software that you already familiar with. Okay, like chat application, email services. Okay, and license service that we need to buy as well. Okay. And also the security that we need to implement, okay, on the existing service that we already have. And then also the file storage or the cloud file storage that we use this day. Okay. So if we don't use cloud, we can also implement or install our own file storage server. Okay. It's free. Okay. And then we also have to consider having the network file storage. It's very useful to transfer file between one machine to one machine, okay, without having to download or copy through USB flash. And then we have platform service that is essential for software development, okay, for developer, the web server and the database, okay. So I think the tools is always done. I mean, the system administrator need to consider having or install or configure these two services before starting to do something else. Okay. So the web server and the database. Okay. So the web server that most popular used this day is Apache and Nginx. But if you use Windows Server, you have to install Microsoft IIS. And then for the database, we have MySQL and then PostgreSQL. Okay, that's the two popular one. And the emphasize here is that database is very complex job, and there is a whole entire specialization working just for database. Okay. And then we talk about the status error code that we can get from our server, the HTTP status code. And if you ever encounter that kind of error code, you need to check, okay, the status code, what number, okay, so that you can try to identify the issue that is happening. Is it happening on the client or is it happening on the server? Something like that. Okay, I think that's all for the today discussion. Okay, and for the next discussion, we will talk about directory service. It's one of the major service that we need to have inside our organization, inside infrastructure, IT infrastructure organization. Any question? Yeah, ចង់ខ្ញុំ summarize ជាខ្មែរឡើងវិញអត់ ចឹងចំណុចសំខាន់នៅក្នុង service ពីរនេះបែរថាអ្វីដែលយើងនិយាយតាំងពីដើមមក នៅក្នុង organization មួយធម្មតាកន្លែងណាក៏កន្លែងណាហើយត្រូវមាន IT infrastructure អូខេឥឡូវវា depend មែនតើទៅលើ IT infrastructure អញ្ចឹងបើសិនជាក្នុងករណីដែលមានជា organization ថ្មីគេត្រូវការមនុស្សទៅធ្វើការជាពិសេស system admin យើងហ្នឹងអញ្ចឹងយើងត្រូវចាប់ផ្ដើមគិតអូខេថាយើងត្រូវមានអីខ្លះតែយើងត្រូវតម្លើងក្នុងហ្នឹងអញ្ចឹង software និង platform គឺជា service ពីរដែលតែងតែត្រូវមានអូខេត្រូវមានអូខេអញ្ចឹងធម្មតាយើងចូលទៅក្នុងធ្វើការក្រុមហ៊ុនមួយវាមានអស់ហើយអាហ្នឹងអូខេយើងមានទៅធ្វើអីទៅឡើងវិញទេអូខេអានេះក្នុងករណីដែលយើងត្រូវធ្វើសារដើមវិញអាហ្នឹងយើងត្រូវមានអាហ្នឹងក្នុងហ្នឹងមាន chat application អូខេ chat application នៅថ្ងៃគេប្រើគេប្រើច្រើនតាមទៅតាមក្រុមហ៊ុននេះគេអាចប្រើ Zoom គេអាចប្រើ Microsoft Teams គេអាចប្រើ Google គេអាចប្រើអីផ្សេងទៅហើយ security service ហ្នឹងត្រូវមាន security service នេះបើសិនជាមានពេលយើងនឹងនិយាយបន្ថែមទៀតមិញយើងនិយាយតែអ្វីដែលយើង apply នៅលើ web server ទេខ្ញុំបាននិយាយ detail ទេវាមានច្រើនទៀតអូខេយើងត្រូវដាក់ firewall យើងត្រូវដាក់អីទៀតហ្នឹងជា topic មួយធំទៀតដែលយើងត្រូវនិយាយច្រើនហើយបន្តមកតើតនឹងemail ឯហ្នឹងយើងដឹងហើយគេយើងធម្មតា email នៅណាក៏ត្រូវមានដែរធម្មតាជា business ជា organization ធំមួយយើងមាន domain name ខ្លួនឯងយើងត្រូវមាន mail ខ្លួនឯងដែរអូខេយើងមាន address ចេញមកជា domain name របស់យើងហ្នឹងអាហ្នឹងវាជាចំណុចល្អមួយអូខេអាហ្នឹងគេ branding អូខេធម្មតា business ត្រូវការ branding ហ្នឹងហើយយើងមានអីទៀតfast storage អូខេ fast storage ឥឡូវគេប្រើតែ cloud ទេប៉ុន្តែបើសិនជាចង់តម្លើង fast storage ខ្លួនឯងនៅក្នុង local server ក៏យើងធ្វើបានដែរអូខេតែឥឡូវគេនិយមប្រើ cloud ប៉ុន្តែបើយើងប្រើ cloud យើងត្រូវអង្គុយ download upload ហើយ download ហ្នឹងត្រូវការ internet speed ដែរតែបើយើងប្រើក្នុង local អាហ្នឹងវាលឿនហើយវាអត់ត្រូវការ internet speed ទេអញ្ចឹងបើសិនជាយើងដើរទៅរៀនស្រុកគេនៅក្នុងសាលាគេ network គេយល់ network គេគឺគេធ្វើមកស្អាតចប់មកអញ្ចឹងបើសិនយើងភ្ជាប់ Wi-Fi ឬក៏យើងដោតខ្សែនៅក្នុងសាលា speed ដែលយើង transfer ហ្នឹងអា speed transfer ហ្នឹងយើង download ពីណាក៏ដោយក៏វាលឿនដែរគេលឿនមែនតើគេអាចឡើងដល់ខ្ញុំធ្លាប់តែ speed នៅសាលាខ្ញុំទៅហ្នឹងគឺដូចដល់ជាង100 មេអូខេ100 មេមួយ second 100 មេកា100 មេកា bit 100 មេកា bit វាធំមែនតើអូខេយើង organization បើយើងធ្វើអញ្ចឹងបានយើងអាចមាន data transfer speed លឿនអូខេយើងអត់ប្រមាច់ត្រូវការ internet ទេតាមពិតទៅហើយតើតើនឹងអាហ្នឹង network fast storage អូខេយើងមាន fast storage ហើយយើងមាន network fast storage បានថាយើងមានកន្លែង store ទិន្នន័យហើយយើងអាចមានជា network បានថាយើងអាចបញ្ជូនទិន្នន័យលឿនអូខេបញ្ជូនទិន្នន័យទៅមកលឿនហើយដល់មកតើតើនឹង web server ហើយនឹងអីគេdatabase អូខេចឹងពីរហ្នឹងគឺជារបស់សំខាន់មែនតើធម្មតាយើងចូលធ្វើការក្នុងកន្លែងមួយវាមានអស់ហើយពីរហ្នឹងអូខេប៉ុន្តែអាហ្នឹងសម្រាប់ករណីដែលយើងធ្វើឡើងវិញជា organization ថ្មីអូខេចឹងយើងត្រូវការ develop web develop application អីអាហ្នឹងត្រូវមានហើយអូខេweb server ហើយនឹង database ហើយ web server ដែលគេពេញនិយមគឺ Apache និង Nginx ហើយ database យើងប្រើ MySQL ឬក៏ PostgreSQL អូខេ តែតងនឹង True Positive នេះអានេះជាផ្នែកមួយដែលយើងត្រូវឆែកនៅពេលដែលយើង access website យើងអត់បាន មានលេខកូដច្រើនគេយើងអាចឆែកមើលបន្ថែមអាលេខកូដហ្នឹងយ៉ាង404វាមានបញ្ហាខាង client តែបើយើងបានលេខ4យើងបានលេខ5អាហ្នឹងវាបញ្ហាខាង server វិញអូខេមានប៉ុណ្ណឹងមកក្រោយយើងនិយាយ directory service ជា service ដែលសំខាន់ដែរនៅក្នុង organization ត្រូវមានអូខេ any question សម្រាប់យើងធ្វើ developer ក៏បើសិនជាអត់ដឹងអារឿងនេះអារឿងចឹងក៏បើសិនជាយើងដឹងវាជួយយើងដែរអូខេតែមានអីខ្លះអូខេតែជាការងារសម្រាប់ system administrator អូខេបើសិនជាអត់សំនួរទេយើងតែអាខ្វីនេះខ្ញុំចង់ធ្វើឥឡូវហ្នឹងដាច់ចាំបាច់we have a quiz okay I think you can do it until I will create it and set a deadline can do it until let's say okay I think wait let me check first yeah you can do it until 5 p.m. 5 p.m. okay is it okay I think it's plenty time for you
លោកគ្រូដាក់ដល់12យប់លោកគ្រូ
ចាំមិនដល់12យប់
លោកគ្រូថ្ងៃហ្នឹងខ្ញុំរៀនពេញម៉ោងនោះ15
អូខេអូខេ12យប់ក៏បានចាអូអូខេany question មានណាគេចង់សួរតតងនឹងអីគេ lab ទេទីក៏ចាំសួរមកគួរហើយបញ្ហាអត់ដល់ខ្ញុំអាចផុសក្នុងនេះអត់មានណាគេ lab ផុសចា
ធ្វើដើរហើយចា
អ្នកធ្វើដើរអានោះអ្នកធ្វើដើរអ្នកធ្វើអត់ដើរទីអ្នកធ្វើអត់ដើរ
រក error អត់ទាន់ឃើញចា
រក error អត់ទាន់ឃើញបានឲ្យសួរហើយចង់អង្គុយរកផ្នែករហូតមែនអូខេអ្នកប្រើ chip M1 អ្នកប្រើ chip M1 ផ្ញើមើលបរិបទឈ្មោះ list មើលណាគេប្រើខ្លះកាត់ list មកហើយខ្ញុំឲ្យយើងទៅធ្វើរកឥឡូវ research សិនព្រោះខ្ញុំអត់ច្បាស់ដែរទេខ្ញុំអត់ដឹងថាខ្ញុំដឹងថាវា possible អត់ទេចឹងយើងរបស់ទី1គេអ្នកប្រើ chip M1 តែគេនៅហ្នឹងស្ដាប់ផងយើងទៅមើល service របស់ Amazon មួយគេហៅ AWS EC2 អូខេយើងអាចទៅបង្កើត account free បានខ្ញុំគិតថាវា free អូខេប៉ុន្តែខ្ញុំអត់ដឹងថាត្រូវបង់លុយប្រហែលប៉ុន្តែដឹងតែ free គេមាន limit quota សម្រាប់ចំនួនម៉ោងដូចអាចរបស់វាហ្នឹងណាយើងអាចទៅឡើង instant របស់វាហ្នឹងទៅឡើងយំទុះបានណាAWS EC2 អូខេដើម្បីទៅបង្កើតអាហ្នឹងឲ្យបានហើយប្រាប់ខ្ញុំវិញថាយើងអាចប្រើវាបានអត់លឿនតែគេប្រើ chip M1
លោកគ្រូម្ដងទៀតលោកគ្រូឈ្មោះអីគេមិនលោកគ្រូ service
Amazon Web Service EC2 អូខេ EC2 EC2 ខ្ញុំសេក្នុងឆាតឲ្យ AWS អាហ្នឹងដូចជា free ខ្ញុំអត់ច្បាស់ទេអញ្ចឹងយើងទៅមើលតែយើងអាចបង្កើត account free បានអត់ហើយបង្កើត account បានហើយយើងអាចទៅឡើងយូទូបបានអត់យូទូ server បើយើងធ្វើអាហ្នឹងបានយើងអាច practice lab តាមហ្នឹងអត់Okay, any question? ចឹងខ្ញុំនឹង I will create the quiz first because I haven't created yet. There are some questions that I need to add, so you can check later when it's ready. For now, if you have any question, you can ask. And I think it's about time to mention about the midterm test. Okay, so the midterm test. Midterm test. I think next 2 weeks. So this week is 20. Okay, next 2 weeks. So 26. Okay. Midterm. So midterm here. I think it's just question based. Okay, it's for the convenience. We just use question based for now. And then we will try to do a kind of presentation better. Okay. So it's just question based. Six, maybe. I think the quiz is not a lot. Actually. Okay, any question? No? Okay, if you don't have any question, I think I will have to Okay, I think it's for that. Want to put assignment? I think assignments can be good. I think that's all today. Okay. Thank you for joining the session. If you have any problem, you can ask me later.
Goodbye, teacher.
Okay.
Goodbye, sir.